So that convergence, I think, is undoubtedly happening. The amount of, and going back to the data statistic of how fast data is growing and the usage of data, all of this is about how do you manage your shopping experience. Things like ratings and reviews, search and shop, real-time incentives, which is considered one of the big incentive plays towards pushing people towards mobile phones, is something, or mobile payments is something which is moving things. But getting rid of those little paper slips that we get at the shops every day, that's also a really big enhancement. And you can see there that almost 60% of customers would see that as a big, big benefit. You know, those are the things that accumulate in our physical wallets, and then we just throw them out at some stage. Most of the time, that's really what happens. Leads you to better payment choices. And a lot of cards these days are driven towards loyalty programs and making the right choice for yourself to build up points for whatever they may be, whether they're Voyager miles or Discovery miles or whatever they may be. But those are, you've got to start thinking about which card do I pull out at which shop and all of those kind of things. A mobile wallet can deal with all of that. So it's a no-brainer, isn't it? We're all going to move to mobile and mobile wallets and start shopping with mobile wallets, and they'll be over in a couple of years. Well, not really. Segmentation is definitely behavioral. And the latest views also from Europe and the US is that probably 50%, 52%, over 50% of customers actually aren't interested in a mobile wallet. They have real concerns around what's going on. But you can probably carve out three main segments. The techno shopper, the traditionalist, and the payment optimizer. The techno shopper really would be somebody who is interested in mobile wallets, attracted to shopping and social features particularly. Make cards more efficient is one of the things that they'd be looking for. Payment optimizer, interested in mobile wallets and making cards and payments more efficient, making sure that they're getting the best deal for the money that they spend. The traditionalists, the main issue here seems to be concern around security. And it's not surprising, I suppose. In this particular survey, they asked customers who had lost their wallet in the last year. 10% of customers had lost their wallet. And it was considered a much bigger deal than losing their mobile phone to lose a wallet. Now, if you had all of that converged on one thing, you've lost both in one go. The issues of hacking and etc. still play out there, of information getting stolen play out there. But there's a lot to be positive about pushing towards a mobile wallet. But I don't think customers are really there yet. And that's in a very, very sophisticated society. The views of customers, and this is really a best case type of view. It won't be necessarily what we would see in South Africa. The awareness of contactless payments, and I think contactless payments is worthwhile just touching on. NFC is probably the most likely technology to succeed in making payments at point of sale. And I think that's being backed up again and again, but it's just a tap and go. It makes sense, but it needs a lot of infrastructure rollout. Those who have actually used NFC across the US and the UK, only 8%, although 80% were aware of it, only 8% have actually adopted it. And it does talk to probably a very immature market in terms of this at this stage. So people are aware but not really using. Would customers use their mobile wallet to make payments? Yeah, quite a few say they would. About 34%, about a third of the population say they would use it. That increases when you start talking to the younger generation, which I think is quite significant. If an incentive is added, suddenly everyone gets more excited about it and saying, well, if I can get discounts by using it, then yeah, I'll move along. And if security concerns are addressed, then a lot more will use it. And it kind of gets up to the 50% mark of the population if all of those type of things were in place. But it is a big stretch, I guess, in terms of getting the whole population moving there. And one of the big issues about it is ecosystems. This cannot operate in isolation. Mobile wallets, very attractive offering, but there's a big ecosystem. There's the content providers, the content consumers, the access providers, the user themselves. All of those need to work in unison to actually make this work. Universal acceptance of mobile wallets needs to happen. Standards need to be pulled out. All of these things will take a long time. And will it actually replace card? That's probably the big question. Well, I don't think so. If you start looking at who's actually driving towards mobile wallets and mobile payments, a couple of years ago, a survey was done. Who do you think would be the leaders in mobile wallets? Initially, it was thought that banks and basically the online payment schemes like Google and Amazon, etc., would be the leaders in that. That's changed around now. Credit card companies or the associations are a big driver towards mobile wallets. And it's actually, if you think of it in terms of concept, it's really about driving those pieces of plastic into a mobile environment. All the features are the same. It's just that you don't necessarily need to carry plastic. If we go back to the top of the presentation and say, well, what's the future for plastic? Possibly quite dim, but what's the future for cards and their functionality? Pretty bright still. The ecosystem is the big deal. And again, going back to the M-Pesa example in Kenya, it's interesting just to view what actually happened there. I've had quite a few conversations with Vodafone about M-Pesa and its ability and why has it been so successful. Their view is quite strongly that it's really about the ecosystem that they built around it. So the vendors, the merchants, who are all involved in that has become ubiquitous in the Kenyan society. And then you get a successful view. This world still has a long way to go in terms of building a total, really good ecosystem to deal with it. From a user perspective, ownership and control must be perceived. Must be able to have multi-channel access. So it's not just about your mobile phone, but you want to be able to see all your things on a PC or through your work network. The content providers, the banks, etc., those could be considered spammers as well in this type of view. So you've got that kind of thing to think about. So what about access control? All of those things which come onto that. The content consumers, so the POS, I've already spoken about that, but NFC hasn't been rolled out well enough across the way. And to get all of this working, is there enough money in it? That's a good question. What about the business? How do we get this all to work together? Because there's going to have to be a whole lot of agreements on a back-to-back basis across that whole ecosystem to make this work. We're going to need to get pretty sophisticated about how you manage the value chain here, because I don't think customers are expecting to pay more for their payments. They're expecting to pay less. And is there enough money in it to make sure that it does happen? There's no question about the convenience factor if we can get the ecosystem working. But there is a lot of work to do there. And also, it's not just about is there enough money in it. Can we provide enough incentive to do it? And it really is about loyalty. So I think the consensus view at this stage is probably that retail payments will drive it, driven from loyalty, about deals in a specific place. Again, talking through the different players in the value chain, there's no doubt that the banks are playing, the credit card merchants are playing, the network operators are playing, independent technology providers are playing, the big online payment schemes and the techno giants are playing. So it's going to be interesting. How does one get standardization across all of that? And I think we the infrastructure side, we are reasonably tired after the EMV rollout. To go to the next big thing is going to take some time. So just in conclusion, just to touch on what's been said over here. We think that it's very likely that mobile wallets will develop to eventually replace the physical wallets we carry. It won't be for every consumer that happens, but a lot of consumers will move towards that over time. It's going to take time, though, and a lot of it. It's being driven by both the sophisticated and the unsophisticated markets. You definitely have, in fact, the most successful payments are happening in the unsophisticated markets, and that dire need to handle logistics and handle physical security is something which has driven real innovation. It's likely that the adoption will increase gradually. In some countries it will be explosive, such as Kenya. But in other countries where there's an established network, an established infrastructure, and an established way of doing things, the take-up will probably be a lot slower. Niche players in the chain will definitely play it. Places like Starbucks have done an amazing job with their mobile app and getting that running. There'll be an increased rollout of functionality and capability, and as things need to go through their natural hardware cycle, I guess there will be a rollout of more functionality. And we will eventually reach a tipping point to get us to a place where mobile wallets really do become adopted. But it's unlikely that cards will be sidelined altogether. They'll just change form. They'll be something which is lodged in your mobile wallet as a payment mechanism. And I think the interest shown by Visa and MasterCard has been, and Amex has been, a big view around how this can actually happen. I think that the clarity is starting to come out as to what a mobile wallet will particularly look like. And it's more about lodging that functionality and adding extra informational ability that really will get this going. Getting the ecosystem to work well is the key to unlocking this opportunity. And that means a lot of different players playing together in the same sandpit. And that's going to take a little while. Those of us who have been in the banking arena know that it's difficult enough to get 4 banks to work together. Getting everyone else to work together will also be a big, big challenge. But it is coming, there's no doubt about it. It's an exciting development in the world of payments. And in some people's life, it will replace cash. It will replace checks. It will replace the piece of plastic in your wallet. Thanks. Any questions?
Any questions for Richard?
Are you allowed to comment on Absa strategy in this regard?
I can comment to a point. So I think we are dabbling in quite a few different things. Obviously, mobile has a lot of different streams in it. So I think obviously the banking apps and those kind of things go onto mobile. But we are introducing what Barclays has done, Ping It, from the UK as a person-to-person payments type of strategy. We do think that there's a lot of ability in that type of thing. We have noticed that M-Pesa hasn't really taken off in South Africa, so there's regulatory issues around it. But we do think that we will be rolling out towards NFC, Ping It, person-to-persons. But I do think that it's a difficult position to be in. We are playing in mobile. What's going to be super successful? It's not mature enough to be able to tell yet.
I've got a million questions on this, so
yeah.
Anybody else can just jump in. Between Absa Barclays customers, payments, that makes a lot of sense. How long before I can pay from one country Absa Barclays to another country Absa Barclays? And how long before we see you guys actually working between banks?
So that capability is already in place as long as it's between, according to regulation, exchange control rules, etc., which play in that. I think there's a lot of work being going in towards being able to make payments between Barclays operations across the globe. I think that you'll probably see that being rolled out in Anga towards the end of this year and 2014.
We'll remember that.
Yeah.
Interbank?
When you say interbank?
Between yourselves and Standard Bank, Stanbic and the other parties that play in Africa.
Again, according to those links are already kind of in place through the SWIFT network. If that's what you're kind of going with, it's expensive.
That is
yeah.